struggle but also silently praying that the little colt would find the will to overcome both his sickness and his grief. When wildlife photographer Maria Santos heard the desperate cries of a young horse echoing across the Nevada desert, she thought she was about to witness yet another heartbreaking loss to the unforgiving wilderness. But instead she came across a weak Mustang foal, its tiny body covered in mange, clinging to life while calling out for a mother that seemed long gone. Maria prepared herself to record another tragic story of the wild Mustangs. Yet within minutes she would see something that went against everything she thought she knew about wild horse behavior. A moment that proved family bonds could stretch beyond even death itself, creating a miracle that would forever influence wildlife conservation. Maria Santos had been photographing wild Mustang herds in the remote canyons of northern Nevada for more than 10 years, but the sound that reached her ears on that burning July afternoon in 2024 was unlike anything she had ever experienced in her career. The high-pitched, sorrowful whinnies echoed through the desert with such pain that Maria felt her chest tighten instantly. At 38 years old, she was following a small Mustang band for a National Geographic project when the cries pulled her away from the main herd and into a narrow canyon where the heartbreaking sound bounced endlessly off the red sandstone cliffs. "What on earth?" Maria muttered, carefully steering her ATV over the rough terrain toward the cries. Her trained instincts told her that a young horse was in grave trouble, and everything inside her urged her to move faster. But what she found when she rounded the canyon's bend stopped her completely and filled her eyes with tears. In the middle of the rocky floor stood one of the most pitiful sights she had ever seen in her years of work. A Mustang foal, barely 3 months old, stood trembling and sick. The sight was devastating. His small frame was ravaged by severe mange, leaving him almost hairless, with raw, infected patches across his body. What little remained of his once glossy coat hung in ragged shreds, and his thin figure revealed sharp bones from extreme starvation. What hurt Maria most wasn't only his condition, it was his desperate behavior. Every few seconds, the foal lifted his tiny head and let out a sharp, sorrowful cry that echoed through the canyon walls, calling again and again for a mother who never came. His dark, fevered eyes darted wildly over the empty land, searching for the comfort of a figure he would never see. "Oh, sweetheart," Maria whispered softly as she turned off her ATV and walked closer, keeping her steps slow and her presence calm. "Where's your mama, little one?" Up close, the foal's suffering was even worse than she first thought. The mange had eaten away at his skin until open sores covered much of his body, and his shallow, uneven breaths made every moment look like it might be his last. He could not have weighed more than 150 pounds, far below the healthy weight expected for a 3-month-old foal. What troubled Maria most was the young horse's complete isolation. Wild Mustangs were deeply social creatures, living in close family bands where mares guarded their foals with fierce devotion. For one this small to be entirely alone meant something tragic had happened to his herd. Maria quickly lifted her camera to capture the heartbreaking sight, even as her chest ached for the suffering colt. He appeared far too weak to fear her presence, his thin frame trembling as he continued to cry out every few seconds, his voice growing more strained with each sound. "Your mama isn't coming back, is she, little one?" Maria whispered, her eyes misting as she studied the foal's worsening state. The colt's tiny body was wasting away from disease and hunger, abandoned in one of the harshest landscapes in North America. Maria now faced the difficult choice every wildlife photographer knows. Her role was to record nature as it unfolded, not intervene. Yet staring at this dying foal, barely able to remain upright while still calling out for a mother who would never return, Maria felt her professional detachment collapsing. With a heavy breath, she reached for her satellite phone and contacted the Bureau of Land Management's emergency wildlife line. If there was any hope for the foal, immediate veterinary care was his only chance. Still, even as she spoke, Maria felt certain she was already too late. The colt's cries echoed against the canyon walls, each weaker than the one before, as though his fragile body was surrendering to exhaustion. Bracing herself, Maria prepared to document what she believed would be his last moments, another harsh reminder of the brutal survival laws of wild Mustangs. But what happened next would challenge everything she thought she knew about the strength of wild horse families. Within an hour of her call, a Bureau of Land Management rescue team arrived, led by experienced wild horse veterinarian Dr. James Mitchell. At 45 years old, Dr. Mitchell had treated countless abandoned foals during his 2 decades of work, yet even he seemed shaken by what he saw. "This is one of the worst mange cases I've ever come across in a foal this young," he said grimly while completing his first examination. "With the malnutrition and dehydration on top of it, I'm honestly surprised he's still standing." The foal, whom Maria had already started calling Echo because of his cries that bounced endlessly through the canyon, was in critical condition. His temperature ran dangerously high from infection. His breathing was shallow and rapid, and the mange had worsened to the point that secondary bacterial infections now threatened his survival. "Can you save him?" Maria asked softly, her professional mask gone as she watched the frail colt fight for each breath. Dr. Mitchell's face remained serious as he began emergency treatment. "I can't promise anything, Maria. Even if we stabilize him, foals this young rarely make it without their mothers. He'll need round-the-clock care, specialized treatment, and honestly, a miracle." With careful hands, the rescue team lifted Echo into a special horse trailer fitted with medical equipment. As they secured him inside, the foal's weak but persistent cries for his missing mother still echoed through the canyon air. Every few minutes, despite his fragile state, Echo would lift his small head and release those desperate cries, as if hoping that somehow this time his mother would respond. "He hasn't stopped calling for her since the moment I found him," Maria explained as preparations were made to transport him to the nearest equine medical center. "It's like he refuses to accept that she's gone." During the journey to the veterinary hospital in Reno, Echo's condition worsened. Dr. Mitchell worked quickly, giving IV fluids and antibiotics, but the foal's vital signs stayed dangerously unstable. What alarmed him most was the obvious psychological suffering. Even while battling for life, Echo continued calling for his mother with heartbreaking insistence. "I've never seen a foal this sick cry out so constantly," Dr. Mitchell admitted. "Normally, animals this weak save what little energy they have to fight for survival. But Echo is spending his last strength calling for the mare who should be here." Maria decided to follow Echo to the hospital, documenting each step of his rescue. She believed the story would show the brutal truth of wild horse survival. But the little foal's determination to keep calling for his mother touched her heart in a way she hadn't expected. At the veterinary hospital, equine specialist Dr. Sarah Chen took charge of Echo's care. Her first examination confirmed Dr. Mitchell's findings. Echo was battling on multiple fronts. "The mange has severely damaged his skin and caused infections," Dr. Chen explained, while carefully working to stabilize him. "But my greatest concern is his emotional state. He's traumatized by being separated from his mother, and that stress is making his body even weaker." Placed in a specialized intensive care stall, Echo still let out his sorrowful cries every few minutes. The sound was devastating, a weak, broken call that carried all the weight of abandonment and longing no young animal should endure. "Is there any chance his mother's still alive?" Maria asked, clinging to a small sliver of hope. Dr. Mitchell slowly shook his head. "Mares don't abandon healthy foals, Maria. For Echo to be alone in this condition means something serious happened to his entire band. It could have been predators, disease, an accident, any number of things that left him without them." As night fell, Echo's body stabilized slightly under constant treatment, but his emotional pain showed no sign of easing. Every few minutes, his weak cries echoed through the hospital, calling for a mother who would never come. Maria stayed at the facility, documenting his on the 3rd day of his hospital stay. Maria sat in the visitor area reviewing her footage of Echo's slow recovery, when Dr. Chen suddenly burst into the room, her face filled with shock. "Maria, you have to see this," she said, her voice unsteady. "Something unbelievable is happening outside in the parking lot." At the edge of the parking lot, as if she had appeared from nowhere, stood a full-grown Mustang mare. She was clearly wild. Her muscular frame and distinct markings revealed her Nevada heritage. and her cautious, watchful stance showed the instinctive wariness of a horse that had never been handled by humans. But what left everyone stunned was what she was doing. The mare was calling out, releasing the soft, rolling knickers mares use to communicate with their foals. She paced back and forth anxiously, eyes locked on the hospital building as if she knew exactly where to look. "How is this even possible?" Maria whispered, raising her camera with trembling hands to record the incredible scene. "How did she know to come here?" Dr. Mitchell, alerted the moment the mare appeared, could only shake his head in disbelief. "In 20 years of working with wild horses, I've never seen anything like this. Wild mares don't track their foals to human facilities. There's no way she could know we brought him here." The mare was breathtaking, even with the signs of hardship etched across her body. Scars marked her coat, and her lean frame revealed the struggles of surviving Nevada's brutal terrain. But her focus never wavered. Her eyes remained fixed on the building where Echo was fighting for his life. And then something extraordinary happened. The moment Echo heard his mother's familiar voice, his reaction was immediate. The weak colt, who had barely managed to lift his head for days, suddenly forced himself onto his shaky legs. He cried out in response, his voice filled with new strength that stunned the veterinary staff. "His vitals just spiked," Dr. Chen announced, monitoring his equipment. "Look, his heart rate is rising, his breathing is steadier, and watch his posture. He knows she's here." The team quickly arranged a careful reunion, astonished by the impossible turn of events. They moved Echo into an outdoor paddock where he could see her while still receiving treatment. The moment mother and foal laid eyes on each other, the air filled with emotional calls that brought tears to every witness. The mare stepped as close to the fence as she dared while Echo pressed against the rails, both of them desperate for reunion. "This defies medicine," Dr. Mitchell admitted, shaking his head in wonder. "His body is responding to her presence in ways none of our treatments could accomplish. His immune system is already showing signs of strengthening since she arrived." Maria filmed every moment, overwhelmed by the miracle before her. How had the mare found him? How did she know he was here? Dr. Jennifer Walsh, an animal behaviorist called to observe the event, offered a theory that challenged conventional science. "What we're seeing suggests a maternal bond that goes beyond our current understanding of animal intelligence," she explained. Somehow this mare tracked her sick foal across 50 miles of desert to a human facility. The implications for animal cognition and emotional connection are extraordinary. The mare's arrival transformed Echo's condition almost instantly. His appetite returned, his energy surged, and most importantly, his emotional suffering vanished. The desperate, heartbreaking cries that had filled the hospital for days were replaced by the soft, contented sounds of a foal comforted by his mother's presence. "She saved his life," Dr. Chen said simply, her voice filled with awe as she watched the two Mustangs reconnect. None of our medical treatments could do what her presence achieved within minutes. But the most astonishing part of the story was still to come. The unbelievable journey this wild mare had taken to reach her dying foal. The question of how Echo's mother managed to track him across nearly 50 miles to a veterinary hospital became the center of an unprecedented research project led by Dr. Walsh and a team of animal behavior experts from the University of Nevada. What they uncovered would completely reshape scientific views of horse intelligence and the strength of maternal bonds. Using GPS data, trail cameras, and interviews with local ranchers and wildlife officials, the researchers pieced together the mare's remarkable path. The story that emerged was even more incredible than they had ever imagined. The mare, whom they named Hope, had traveled 53 miles in less than 4 days, following a route that indicated she was actively tracking her foal's scent trail as well as the vehicles that had carried him. At a press conference that gained worldwide attention, Dr. Walsh explained that evidence showed Hope had survived the same disaster that separated her from Echo, most likely a sudden flash flood that scattered their herd. Echo had been left behind in the canyon, weakened and infected by contaminated water, while Hope was swept downstream. For weeks, she searched desperately for her missing foal. "What's extraordinary is that Hope wasn't just wandering aimlessly," Dr. Walsh said. Trail camera footage shows her using a clear, systematic search pattern, and when she discovered the scent left by our rescue vehicles, she followed it with focus and determination. The most unbelievable part of her journey came as she reached the edge of Reno, a large city, an environment completely foreign to a wild Mustang. Yet hope pushed forward. She crossed suburban neighborhoods, industrial zones, and busy roads with astonishing skill. We have security footage showing her moving through the city at night, avoiding traffic, staying in green spaces, and somehow always heading in the right direction, Maria explained as she compiled her documentation. In less than 12 hours, Hope covered the final 15 miles of her journey. Meanwhile, at the veterinary hospital, Echo's recovery accelerated dramatically after her arrival. The reunion between mother and foal was carefully managed so that Echo could bond with her while still receiving treatment for mange and malnutrition. Dr. Chen described his improvement as something unseen in veterinary medicine. His immune system has made remarkable progress since Hope arrived. The stress hormones that were blocking his healing have dropped to normal, and his body is finally responding to treatment exactly as expected. Researchers from multiple universities began studying the pair, eager to understand the extraordinary behavior that had made their reunion possible. Hope had shown navigation skills, scent tracking, and problem-solving abilities that defied all current theories about animal cognition. She combined multiple types of information, scent, environmental knowledge, and even some understanding of human transportation patterns, to achieve something we thought impossible, Dr. Walsh explained as media attention grew. Public response to the story was overwhelming. Donations poured in to cover Echo's medical care and fund new research into horse intelligence and family bonds. Their journey was featured on national television and inspired people around the globe who were amazed by the strength of a mother's love. "This is about more than animal rescue," said Dr. Patricia Moore, director of the National Wild Horse Preservation Society. "Hope and Echo have shown us that wild animals possess emotional depth and problem-solving skills we have always underestimated." As Echo's health steadily improved, the pair were moved permanently to a specialized Mustang sanctuary. Researchers documented every detail of their relationship, learning more each day about the remarkable abilities that made their reunion possible. Hope, who had achieved the impossible by tracking down her dying foal, was about to teach the world even more about the intelligence of wild horses and the unshakable strength of maternal love. 6 months after Hope's 53-mile journey, Echo had grown into a strong, healthy young Mustang. His survival became a symbol of hope for wild horse conservation across the American West. Their story not only saved 2 lives, it transformed scientific understanding of horse intelligence and family bonds. The Hope and Echo Sanctuary, founded as a permanent home for the famous mare and foal, quickly became a hub for groundbreaking research into wild horse behavior. Dr. Walsh's ongoing studies revealed insights that were changing science's view of animal intelligence and emotional depth. Hope and Echo have proven beyond doubt that wild horses possess cognitive abilities and emotional intelligence far greater than we ever believed, Dr. Walsh announced during the sanctuary's first anniversary celebration. Hope's search for Echo revealed her navigation skills, problem-solving ability, and determination, proving wrong many assumptions we once had about animal limits. Echo had grown into a stunning yearling whose playful spirit and sharp mind drew visitors from around the globe. His recovery from near death to thriving health had been captured in a best-selling book and an award-winning documentary. But far more importantly, his story brought real changes in wild horse management, focusing on keeping families together. Hope's deep maternal devotion not only touched hearts around the world, but also drove meaningful advances in horse conservation. The Bureau of Land Management introduced new rules that gave priority to family reunification and developed tracking systems to prevent mothers and foals from being separated. Hope showed us that breaking up wild horse families doesn't just cause momentary pain, it can threaten survival, explained Dr. Mitchell, now director of the Wild Horse Family Preservation Program. Her journey to find Echo shows the incredible lengths these animals will go to protect their family bonds. The impact of Hope and Echo's story, also turned the region into a hub for wildlife learning and conservation tourism. The sanctuary welcomed thousands of people each year, creating steady funding for research and rescue work while teaching the public about the intelligence and emotions of these animals. Maria Santos, whose photos of Hope and Echo earned global awards, also provided critical evidence for studies on animal thinking and navigation. Her images of Hope arriving at the hospital and reuniting with Echo became timeless symbols of love and determination. Every time I see the footage of Hope calling out to Echo through the paddock fence, I'm reminded that love knows no species, Maria said in an interview. Her journey proves that family bonds can overcome obstacles that look impossible. The scientific community embraced their story as a spark for deeper studies of animal minds and emotions. Universities across the nation began new research inspired by their reunion, making discoveries that reshaped how people view and treat wild animals. Dr. Chen continued caring for Echo, amazed at how fully he had healed from near death. His physical recovery was remarkable, but his emotional healing through reunion with Hope was the real miracle. He's now a confident, thriving young Mustang who will one day lead a family of his own, she said, watching him play among other colts while Hope grazed calmly nearby. Visitors often struggled to believe such peace had come from such desperate beginnings. Hope's journey proved that some bonds are so powerful they can cross any distance, any obstacle, and even the shadow of death itself. The mare who risked everything to save her dying foal became more than just a wild horse. She became a symbol of love, determination, and the unbreakable ties that hold families together in nature. If Hope and Echo's breathtaking story of maternal love and an impossible reunion moved you, don't forget to hit subscribe and tap the notification bell for more powerful animal family stories. Share this video with someone who believes in a mother's love, because Hope's 53-mile journey proves that some bonds can never be broken. And tell us in the comments, have you ever witnessed animals showing behavior that challenged what you thought was possible? What does Hope's journey teach you about the emotions and intelligence of wild animals? Your support helps us continue sharing stories that reveal just how remarkable these creatures truly are. Maria followed her quickly, expecting perhaps another emergency case. But what she saw in the hospital parking lot froze her in place and sent her hands trembling toward her camera.